Okay, please all rise for Pledge of Allegiance. Joe has put up his flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please stand for a moment of silence for our fallen firefighters, first responders. Thank you. And welcome to our newest commissioner. Would you like to say hello?
Thank you, Dorothy. I appreciate it. Nice to be here. Nice to see all of you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Good. Okay, we have approval of the minutes of the January 14th meeting and the January 15th special meeting in which we approved of the list for new recruits. I need a motion, a second, and then any motion, please.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Do you want to do both of these together?
Pardon? Do you want to do both of them together?
Sure.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you seconding, Joe?
Then I will second it.
Okay. Anything that needs to be amended or changed? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Chairman's report. I don't really have much. I've been talking to the chief a little bit. We know that the town HR department is backed up on contracts, so the deputy chief's contract is still awaiting, but it doesn't come due till March 16th, and unfortunately in the past we have seen that they don't always get them on time. Can I ask a question? We have a Cindy O'Neill Vitale dialed in. Is that for this meeting?
Yes, it is. She's going to speak for CERT. She's the CERT president.
Great. Welcome, Cindy. It's just I didn't recognize your name. Chief's report.
He's muted.
Chief, you're muted.
You're muted, Chief.
Bob Cinto's having a problem signing in, so could you help him, Deputy?
Who was this?
Rob Cinto is having a problem getting on.
Okay, he's just dialing in.
He texted me that he can't sign in. He has an invalid personal room URL.
Been there.
So resend him the link, maybe? Text.
It's the same link we've used. We've been able to keep WebEx for, so I don't know.
It's probably easier to just send it to him again.
No, I will.
By text.
Somebody just came on.
Okay, give me 1 second to respond to Rob so we get him on. Someone's typing in, they don't have mute on, so we're hearing every key. Chief, you're up.
All right. Good evening, Commissioners. A couple items to report on. The training division, which is our report for the month of February. As you can imagine, the activities at the fire school are restricted due to COVID, so there has not been a lot of activity, and I can't say none because it remains a busy place. The town of Fairfield has, we've extended the facility to the town of Fairfield for a lot of training. So there has been DPW training there in the past month. We have our new recruits that are operating out of the fire school for the first month of the recruit academy, because that is part of the mechanism that the state has used to keep them safe and restrict the amount of exposure that they have, and do as much of the academic work remotely before they bring them on site at the Fire Academy, which should be around the 1st of March. So our 3 new recruits, so we have 4 new recruits. One, Nick Demko, has already gone through the Fire Academy as a self-pay and has worked as a career firefighter in Groton and left Groton to come to the Fairfield Fire Department. For those of you who don't know Nick, he has worked for us as an assistant to the mechanic and has been doing that for 5 or 6 years. Very, very qualified, adept. So he went right online after a couple of days of orientation. The other 3 are at the fire school and will be there for the next month. It's good to have daily interaction with them, but being supervised by the training director, Assistant Chief Scott Bisson. And in addition to that, we have a number of training prerequisites that we can't fall behind on, particularly because this is a ISO recertification year. Every year, every 5 years, the insurance service offices reviews fire departments, and I'll get into that a little bit later. But there's a number of training initiatives that are going on and have to be met. The time of year we do EMT recertification, some of our other, classroom type work. And in addition to that, some of the contact hours for required training for us. So that's going on. So it remains a busy place, even though some of the regional school activities are for the region are less. We just did receive an update from the state and the submitted budget from the Department of Emergency Services and Public Protection, which includes the Connecticut Fire Academy and the regional fire schools, has submitted their budget for the fiscal year 22, and it includes flat funding for the regional fire schools. So that's good news in that it's a number that we had put into the budget, $70,000 state grant to operate the regional fire school. So because many of you were not part of that conversation a few years ago when the fire school budget was established as a standalone functioning budget within the town budget, essentially a wholly owned subsidiary of the town. The funding stream for the regional fire school is essentially $70,000 from the state of Connecticut grant, a $25,000 budget allotment from the town of Fairfield to operate the facility, and user fees that are, we don't operate any classes down there at a loss. So every class in the fee schedule and the expenses to run that class are very closely aligned. And I don't have the number right in front of me, but maybe the deputy recalls, I think the operating budget for the regional fire school is roughly in the $160,000 range. So if you figure $95,000 is from the state grant and the 70 and 25 makes $95,000 in direct budget. The rest is coming from fees. It has been very successful. We're very happy. All of you who have been down there know how important it is to the Fairfield Fire Department and now the town of Fairfield. So with that, I will move on to Fire Marshal's office update, unless anybody has any questions.
Commissioners? Hearing none, go ahead, Chief.
All right. So Fire Marshal's office, as you know, this is a crucial issue for us, and the Commission has been very supportive of it. We have last year submitted, and we've been building for since 2017, a plan to bring in additional staff into the fire marshal's office based on workload. And we revised the fee schedule and have reached over $600,000 last year in fire marshal's fees. And in 2016, by comparison, the revenue for the fire marshal's office was $23,000. So we went from $23,000 in 4 years to over $600,000. We're very concerned that we would not see the kind of revenue that we were hoping for. We had budgeted and projected $500,000 for fiscal year 21, and in the first quarter, because we only had, I think, less than $50,000 in revenue, I was very pessimistic, and in our quarterly budget review with the town and the Board of Finance, we put in a very conservative number, and fortunately, and we have seen some of the projects come online. We're currently at $133,000, and there are two very big projects that will bring us back. And our current projection, and Deputy, correct me if I'm wrong, we submitted in the second quarterly report to the town of Fairfield of $400,000. Is that the number that we gave them, Dep?
Yes, sir.
Yep. So that is an important, and we didn't manufacture a number to support the funding of the position, and I want to be very clear of that. We have to be honest and credible in how we operate the fire department and make any projections to the town. And at risk of losing the position, I did in the first quarter project what I thought was going to be a very, very down year in fire marshal's revenues. Fortunately, we've been able to, or some of the projects, the two university projects, so the big one, the Convocation Center at Fairfield University and the hockey rink at Sacred Heart, those coming online will bring us back up. So we have made a request so last year we asked for 2 new positions in the fire marshal's office. It got trimmed back to 1, and it did not get funded. We have reintroduced a request for a single fire inspector, and despite a very tight budget, I know that the first select woman's office and the fire marshal, the first select woman and the finance director are working hard to support request for an additional position based on the strength of the justification that we have been working up over a series of years. We've made a compelling argument. As a matter of fact, I had a conversation with the finance director, Jared, today, provided him additional background, and we'll provide even more tomorrow in anticipation of ongoing discussions as we approach the budget, the formal budget review. So I am optimistic, cautiously optimistic, but we are doing everything that we can. And in addition, quite honestly, I did offer to delay the start of the new position should the numbers not work for the town, that we can push that back. It doesn't have to be a July 1 start if we needed to find a way to get to yes. So I am cautiously optimistic, and we'll continue to work to advocate for that. And I know the commission has advocated for the position as well. And hopefully we will come to some success. I think I provided you a list of the general meeting dates for the budget. And from that list, the fire department gets assigned to specific dates. When those dates do come up, I will share them with the commission, so you're able to participate or at least observe the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, and RTM meetings when our budget goes forward. So with that, I'll pause and open up for questions.
Yes. Commissioners, questions, comments about anything the chief said, and then specifically about the fire marshal's office?
I got nothing. I'm good.
Okay. So as background to those of you that are new, as the chief indicated, this has been a long-standing discussion, and we have carefully tried to assert the argument relative to the need, and in fact believe that 2 full-time staff members are essential. I totally respect what the chief is doing, trying to navigate the political process, but from a policy and management point of view, we have a role to articulate what we think is necessary. And so the question is whether we want to go on record with a resolution endorsing one or endorsing what we think is necessary, which is 2. So I throw that out for some reactions, and I do have draft language. Joe, you're up.
Yes. Well, people here know my position. A lot of people do, some don't. Is that the fire department and the fire marshal's office is not a revenue-driven office, but it has responsibilities dictated by the state of Connecticut of what needs to be inspected, what needs to be done. So I do understand the political side, like the chief is saying, but I think it is in the town's best interest that we fully endorse getting 2 people up there so that we can stay current with all the responsibilities that need to be taken care of by the fire marshal's office. I understand that building in town is slow, the revenue is not there, but these other responsibilities still exist and they need to be taken care of. So that's my position once again.
Yeah, well, and in a slow year, I'll get to you one second. In a slow year, it's still $400,000, which more than pays for its 2 positions. Alex, you're up.
Yes, I had the privilege of sitting with the chief and the deputy after speaking to Dorothy and kind of going through some of the staffing. And I mean, the department is run so lean. I mean, it's kind of amazing to watch. And I think you're right. This is a matter of public safety, and to the extent that there's a justified, and compelling case to be made, I don't see how we don't put that forward for whatever it is that the chief is determined is necessary in the best interest of public safety.
Okay.
John. Sorry, I think building has actually gone ahead fairly surprisingly steadily during the pandemic as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if we're going to net $400,000, that's a pretty good for a slow year.
Yeah.
So, John, any comments? Bill, are you on yet? And Rob, I think you're on the phone.
Bill is trying to get variances so people can build more.
Okay. Rob, any comments?
Yeah, I'm on the phone. No real comments. I think this isn't a special year for building with all the residential that's going on. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's always going to be the case, and I don't know where we should be asking for money. If this is where the department thinks we should be asking for money for another fire inspector, then so be it. But I really, I have no real knowledge of it.
Okay. Well, we did a whole justification, yes, Chief, that actually worked through and it came up with 2, and it's the political process that has been reining it in. So I'd rather ideally voice the need for 2, recognizing that we probably won't get them. Chief, you wanted to comment?
Yeah, and my approach has always been, to act and I fight to live another day or live to fight another day. And I use the word credibility a lot in how I approach my job and how the fire department needs to position itself and conduct itself. And our staff has heard that word quite a bit. I know that I've used it a lot with the commission. And given the economic realities, I don't find it a credible position to ask for 2 positions this year. And I think that what I would ask the commission to do is to make the case for 2 positions, understand with a strong recommendation for funding one this year and revisiting it in fiscal year 23. Because to force them, I mean, we saw this struggle last year with the Board of Finance, and they worked really hard to find a pathway to approve it as the economy was collapsing, and it puts them in such an awkward position. I would rather lead them to something that they absolutely support and agree with and feel good about at the end than to force them into an untenable position. It affects every other. It affects our relationship with the funding bodies and the governing bodies as well on a host of issues, far beyond the single position or the 2 positions. So I think a pathway forward would be to fund a single position in fiscal year 22 and come back with an additional request in 23.
So how would this be to all of you as a potential resolution? Based on the increased workload, the Fairfield Fire Commission strongly recommends that the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, and RTM work toward the funding of an additional 2 positions in the Fire Marshal's office, with one being funded in fiscal year 22 and revisiting the 2nd position for fiscal 23. Does that thread the needle, Chief?
Yep.
Because that way we're on record as saying 2, but we're also on record as saying it's a political process and we recognize the need to work with the town.
Yep.
Joe?
I'm good with that. As long as it is in there that we are looking for 2, and we understand we can only get whatever, but as long as a body we are on record endorsing getting 2 people in there to get up to snuff.
Yep. Any comments? So let me restate it. Jude, I can send it to you in an email. Based on the increased workload, the Fairfield Fire Commission strongly recommends that the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, and RTM work toward funding an additional 2 positions in the Fire Marshal's office by funding one of them in fiscal 22 and revisiting to fund the 2nd for fiscal 23. Okay, I need a motion and a second because I can't make a motion.
I'll motion it, Rob Cinto.
Okay, and a second?
Second.
Alex, did I see?
Sure.
Okay.
You did.
Alex, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, anybody opposed? No, we're good. Where did I just bury my agenda? Here we go. And so that takes care of that. Chief, do you want to go anything else or go on to the report looking ahead in 2021?
Look ahead.
Okay, go right ahead.
All right, so I sent to the commission, and it's in your packet, a look-ahead document that outlines all of the major activities of the Fairfield Fire Department in the upcoming year. I have a screen that I will share with you.
There you go. This one. Okay, good.
Yeah. Let me. So I'm just going to run through this. It provides an opportunity for the commission to get some of the details that I provided in the document and ask questions about any one of them. We worked on, the deputy and I worked on this listing that you have in the document of the major activities that are going to be ahead of us. So I'll go through that and stop before I go off of each slide if there are any questions. So first, we have talked about staffing being our absolute highest priority. We don't proceed and develop as a department without acquiring great talent and then promoting that talent. We had made a contractual arrangement with the union that we would run promotional exams every 2 years, regardless of whether there's a vacancy or not. Previously, the contract read that promotional exams are valid. The eligibility list is valid for 18 months. And it really created a problem. 18 months is short. There was no reoccurring testing, so you could have a list expire and then it have no positions. If you have a surprise vacancy, there's nobody to fill it, then you have to run an exam. People aren't prepared to take the exam, and this gives a lot of predictability, and people can start to plan. We have a lot of firefighters that aspire to be lieutenants that have young families, they have other commitments. How to devote the amount of time and effort to prepare for an exam is a daunting process. So the deputy and I are very happy that we never have to do that again as we witness the struggle. So we're given a lieutenant's oral, a written and oral, and assistant chief's written and oral. And it's interesting, and I wanted to point this out. There are over 55 firefighters are eligible for promotion, are eligible by time and grade to participate in the promotion process, the testing process. Of those 55, 35 have signed up and will participate in the exam. That's 35 firefighters that are studying all of the relevant material and a dozen books and resource documents that they need to ingest and comprehend. And it is when we made the decision to run the test every 2 years, there was some pushback. Oh, that's a waste. If there's no vacancies, you're wasting, the money to run the test. Well, in addition to the circumstance that, that I previously alluded to of having a vacancy and no active list, what we get is real commitment from the members in their own career and their development. And, it makes them better firefighters, and if they get promoted, better officers. The assistant chief's test is open to all of the lieutenants, 19 of the 21 lieutenants, and 10 have registered to take the exam. So we're looking forward to that. That process will be completed by the middle of March. There'll be a written exam, and then all those who pass with the 70 or better go to the oral. The oral is conducted by outside officers of equal or higher rank for the position they're being tested for, and we hire a company to manage that whole process, RMA out of Chicago. So we're really excited about this process. With a number of retirements anticipated over the next 2 years, this is one test that people are really gearing up for. And Deputy, did you have anything you want to add? Deputy is managing all of the details of this, with the considerable, so I give him an opportunity to add.
Yeah, so we've been, the oral panels are all set up. We're responsible for getting our panelists. So we have the names of 3 people for the assistant chief's panel and 3 people for the lieutenant's panel. They're all set up, ready to go. And, it's a considerable thing for these people to give up 2 days or for the chief's test, and those on the lieutenants give up 3 days, to serve on that panel, because most of them are serving fire officers. So that's set up, and there's things that we have to do in the office, the actual mundane things of getting ready to schedule people, and how do we schedule them, how do we work it around the eligible people's work schedule to set them up for the oral panels that are going to happen in the days after the written test, which is on March 1st. So we've been pretty busy, Sheila and Jen and myself, with that aspect, but I think we're ready to go. So.
Excellent. Chief, will those lists come to us for approval at the March meeting?
Yes. So the process is dictated by union contract. So there is not much that other than to affirm the list. There is not much beyond that that is the purview. I think what we did previously is the list is the list, and we presented it to the commission, and the commission did not approve it, but received it, I guess is how I looked at it. I can go back. We'll have to go back 2 years and double check, but I thought that was the discussion that we had because the process is dictated by the union contract.
Okay, let's check that and the charter, please.
Yep, will do.
Because the charter language may trigger us to do more than that.
Okay, very good. We'll look. Any other questions? So the next item, and keeping in line with the focus on personnel, retirees and new hires, every one of the new hires that we have made is a result of a retiree, and we are anticipating that in the coming year, this is a contract year, so the employment contract with the union expires on June 30th. We just had a meeting last night, an informal meeting with the HR director and the union president and secretary to start to anticipate that process. But contracts usually any changes in benefits could result in retirement decisions, as well as we had a big class that was hired in the early part of 1991, so they reached their 30-year anniversary, and some of those may retire as well. New hires are going to be hired off of the eligibility list promulgated by the Board of Fire Commissioners, and we have maintained close contact with that list. You remember that out of the 4 positions that we just filled, 2 came from other employment that turned down jobs, left a job in Groton and left a job in Waterbury. And we know that the next candidates on the list are looking to, and I have already turned down other employment in the consortium in anticipation of a vacancy, given their standing on our list and our expected vacancies over the next year. They've turned down other employment in anticipating a job opportunity in Fairfield, which I think speaks highly of the Fairfield Fire Department and the reputation that we have. So any of those candidates will come on either for the Fire Academy class September of this year or February of next year. And any questions before I move on? Okay, good. So there are capital projects. We have met Commissioner Cinto is the point of contact from the commission, a liaison from the commission on major construction. This year we're doing bathrooms in Station 1, 2, and 5. We are waiting on construction documents and simultaneously doing some asbestos remediation in a couple of the stations that was identified by the contractor or by the architect. Next year we're doing overhead doors and exhaust systems, and we are that's a pretty straightforward. We can easily estimate those costs, and we want to rehab the floor, the apparatus floor, which is chipping, and there was a coating that was put on there that needs to be sandblasted off to rehabilitate that floor and even out some tripping hazards. So that is for next year, or this current beginning in July. We are currently working to consider what our Station 4 and Southport options are, as well as apparatus maintenance. And we will continue to work through some of those options. And I look forward to maybe a meeting early in March with Commissioner Cinto to go over some of those issues as we start to develop them. And the reason why we need to do this now is we need to have a firm plan in place for September when we put our numbers into the waterfall that gets voted on in February of 2022, February of 22. So we need to work on that, even though the project is not operational until fiscal year 23. We need to start to build the estimates and budgets for it for approval, in September through February of next year. The following year, kitchen at Station 1, day space renovation, additional storage. We don't have a lot of detail on budgets for that yet. And the following year, renovation of the second floor at Station 1 sprinkler system. We have station security following that, and the cameras. Although we are chipping away, and is working on some opportunities for working off an existing bid for station security and keypads to replace the mechanical keypad door locks that we have. So we might be able to use some of our existing capital budget for station repair to do some of those projects now. And then lastly, as you know, Station 1 is not ADA compliant, and Station 1 on Reef Road. Administrative and public space, public visitation on the second floor is only accessed by stair, and we would need an elevator in to be compliant. So that is a final project in this. Any questions? If not, moving on.
I do have a question, and this is actually jumping back a little bit to the eligibility list and where we stand on it. At the rate we are going now, are we going to make it?
With the existing candidates that we have?
Yeah.
I think so. If they don't take, they are turning jobs. We would be in a different position if they were accepting job offers elsewhere. We know that, there was, a couple that turned down jobs. So I think they're committed to here. And when we look at projected retirees, we're really close. I can't say with any certainty because nobody lets us know well in advance that their plans to retire. We have probably 10 people who could retire, but many that we don't think will. So if we get surprised by a rash of retirements, if contract negotiations looks particularly detrimental to continued employment, those people who are on the edge may choose to retire. So, right now I'm hopeful that we won't need to reopen the interview process, but it's a guessing game.
Where are we on the list now?
So, Deputy, we have, 6 available to us on the list?
I could get it if you want, but let's see. We hired number 1, Nick Demko,
yep.
And I think there was 4 or 5. He did leave because he went to New Canaan, so he's out. So we originally had 9 on that list.
So we have 6 or 7 that's still available.
Okay.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
So apparatus, the tower ladders and service, when we ever get back to a in-person meeting, we'd love to be able to demonstrate the ladder truck for you, and anybody who wants to go 100 feet in the air would be glad to give you a beautiful view of Long Island and New York City from at sunset from the top of the tower ladder. But we'll have to wait till we get back to regular in-person meetings. This year we have every 2 years we ask for put in a request for a engine replacement, a pumper replacement. So this is our pumper replacement year. And the reason it's every 2 years is given the 5 frontline vehicles that we have that are pumpers, a ladder truck, a rescue, that it works out in the matrix for those to be replaced. And we typically target anywhere between 12 years of frontline service and 15. We did put money into Engine 4. As you recall, we replaced the frame rails at a cost of $100,000 3 years ago, and we're able to do a major overhaul. So this vehicle is currently 17 years old, much older than we typically keep frontline vehicles, but good rotation from busy station to slower stations. Extended the service life of this vehicle as well as the overhaul. But this is in line for replacement, and our capital waterfall budget requests are for this and the $250,000 for the station maintenance projects. Just note that even though they see somewhere around 15 years of frontline service, they stay as a reserve for another 10 years. So this investment is a 25-year investment for the town of Fairfield.
Good.
We are proposing to apply for a grant. As a matter of fact, did you hit the send button today, Deputy?
I did, Chief.
All right. So we submitted a grant for replacement of our self-contained breathing apparatus. Hopefully we pay, is it 10% of the total for this 10%. Grant? So somewhere in the $180,000, it would cost us $18,000 for those 20 TBA regulators. So today was the deadline. We got it submitted along with everybody else across the country. There's a national grant. It is peer reviewed. We've been very fortunate in the past to get funded for the projects that we submitted. And we will know. Did you have a date for announcements when they will start? It's typically June.
Yes, they're months away.
Okay, very good. Thank you. We have 2 major communications projects, and it's interesting. The number 1 recommendation of the 9/11 Commission after the attacks of 9/11 was to improve interoperable communications. We have been working with the police department and our neighboring communities to develop a platform that would provide interoperability on a 700 megahertz frequency. And we can then include using the backbone, and Commissioner Ozaki is far more qualified to give this presentation than I am. But we will work off the backbone that was created for the Urban Area Security Initiative grant-funded radio project that partners up against the state police radio system. We share a lot of the towers and the capability of that system, and we'll build a trunk local radio system that will allow us from the same device to talk to the police department, the health department, DPW, the buses, and the Board of Ed. So when you talk about interoperability, we will finally reach it with this project that is an $8 million project for the town of Fairfield. And that will be going through the approval process with the boards and commissions. Hopefully by the end of February, we'll start that process. The Emergency Communications Center project is the one that we've been working on to be built at Sacred Heart, and its partnership with the Westport PD, police and fire from Westport, as well as Canaan Fire. So our 5 agencies will be co-located and dispatched out of Sacred Heart, and that approval process will also be beginning in the month of February. Both of them will dramatically improve our capabilities. And what's interesting is that, we will be a subscriber to this system, and it will be upgraded so there is not a cliff that hangs out there 10, 15 years down the road where we then have to replace the system and all of its components. It will be upgraded and maintained current as technology changes, and we will pay a subscriber fee in order to maintain that currency in the system. So this is a huge advantage for the town. As radio systems become increasingly complex, it allows us to build on and take advantage of the technical expertise that exists at the State Department of Emergency Telecommunications and our partners with Norcom and Motorola. So more to come on that as that gets built out. But these 2 projects are really important for the department and the town of Fairfield. Dive team, as you know, that we've been developing our dive rescue capability. The team is operational. We have 8 trained divers. They spent a considerable amount of time last summer, and in the fall, they traveled to Dutch Springs in Pennsylvania to do some of their dive training and certification, and are very committed to this project. And it will give us on-scene capability for dive rescue within minutes of our arrival at potential drownings. And as you know, in the past 5 years, there's been drownings at Perry Mills Pond, off of the reef in Ash Creek, and at Lake Mohegan. So this is it's important for a couple of reasons. One, when we get there, we right now arrive and all we can do is surface diving. It puts our members at risk, for being under-equipped for the mission that they are tasked. We're ordering the public out of the water so we can effect a rescue. So we're compelled to do something. And the dive rescue capability allows us to properly equip and train our members to effect a rescue. So it's an important capability and improvement. As a matter of fact, I just wanted to say I just got a scrapbook from the family of Chief Dopa, who his career ended. He had a heart attack off duty in 1975 while he was serving as fire chief. But in that scrapbook was a detail of the Fairfield Fire Department dive team, which existed from 1972 to I think 1983. And it was canceled due to lack of training funds. So we keep that in the top of our mind of sustaining this operation, this capability going forward. Health and wellness. We have peer fitness trainers. One of the things that we are doing, as a matter of fact, one of the peer fitness trainers was out injured, and as a result, as we see, life gets in the way despite your best efforts to stay healthy. You gain a lot of weight. And there are other members of the department that have been challenged with weight control. So he started a group supported by the peer fitness trainers to help those people, address their weight challenges. And this is one of those benefits that the department, the chief or the deputy could not create, excuse the expression, but a fat club. And that's what he titled it. Like, he recruited all of these firefighters to join the Fat Club. And he puts it out there. He said, listen, I was 195 pounds and now I'm 250 and I need to lose weight. I acknowledge it and I hate myself. So anybody who feels the same way, come join the Fat Club. So they're working on that together. And Jude, you can leave that part out.
Yeah.
But it is an important part of the solution coming from within the department by committed members, and having somebody our peer fitness training and our health and wellness is not intended to add another 10 pounds or 50 pounds to someone's bench pressing that's already doing extraordinary weight. It's really to address the problems of people who are deconditioned and have other challenges to get to where they need to be so they can operate as fire safely. So that continues to be a priority for the department. Chief George Kamola is the head of our Health and Wellness Committee and is doing a great job. And this is one example of the motivation that he has created for people to find their own solutions. Viochi, we do have software that helps us track, as you can imagine, the beginning of a weather event produces a lot of tree and wire damage, creates a fog of war where there are redundant calls for service, there's overlap, and it's very hard to have a clear picture of just how much damage is out there, how many wires are down, how many residents without power, critical facilities without power. So we have this Viochi software that we've been working with for a number of years. We've trained up some additional internal persons. They went through boot camp for operating the software, and they're developing further application to streamline the data collection and display of that information. As I mentioned, we are being re-rated. We're currently in insurance by the insurance services offices. We're at Class 3. We're very close to being at Class 2. It's mainly a bookkeeping exercise and making sure that we're doing all the right things, particularly regarding training. But you'll see at the bottom of this slide, there are 3 main areas in which we're rated: our fire suppression capabilities, how much staff we have on duty, our response time, and our equipment, as well as our trade input in training. Training is an important part of that evaluation. Our water supply, the strength and robustness of our water supply, how many houses are within 1,000 feet of a hydrant, and what the fire flow is from selected hydrants is how that's evaluated, as well as our communication system capabilities, our equipment, our staffing, call processing, and redundancy. So that process will begin late in June, and we're certainly hoping that we can increase our ISO class to a Class 2. And I think in the written documentation that's in your packet, you can see that I think there's about 1,700 Class 2 fire departments in the United States. So getting to Class 2 is a recognition of the excellence of those departments.
Chief, any sense of what percentage difference that makes in a homeowner's insurance to go from 3 to 2?
They don't. We have asked that, and they don't share that information. It's not a big number. It's not high, but when you aggregate all of that savings from every one of the ratepayers, it actually is relatively significant. Deputy, did you have any more detail on any of the impact of change from one class to another?
No, I don't think it was very high for residential, but I thought it was a little more significant for commercial properties.
When we get to the re-rating, Commissioner, we will ask that question, see if we can define it any better for you.
Yeah. Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, Commissioner.
Chief, how does and this may play right into this with the new rating coming out, is how does the staffing of the fire marshal's office affect the ISO rating?
Not at all.
Oh, well.
So it's interesting. It's they're rating against fire loss and basing that on our ability to put fires out, not necessarily our ability to prevent them.
Yeah, I think our insurance would be a hell of a lot cheaper if there's no payouts because we're preventing fires.
Right. Yeah. So unfortunately, if we put all the fire marshal's office into fire suppression, it would have a positive impact on our rating. But doing the reverse doesn't help at all. It would hurt us. Utility. So I've tried to keep you up to date. We have, as a result of the tropical storm Isaias, as well as in the previous year, the fatal accident on Park Avenue where a tree and wires fell on a car, we have developed a strong partnership with UI and have pushed our priorities on getting information, being able to coordinate better, communicate better, and we have pressed for the development of a tool in which we see in real time the amount of damage, the amount of outage, and better projections for restoration. You can imagine, a 7-day event as Isaias was, the number of phone calls for when am I getting my power back? And the first Selectwoman's office was inundated with those phone calls. So we've been pressuring, and we can't make from an emergency management perspective, if we don't know that this is going to be a 7-day event or who it's going to be a 7-day event for, we can't give anybody any actionable advice on whether to stay, go to a shelter, go to a hotel, get a generator for the refrigerator because they're going to lose everything in the refrigerator. If you know you're going to be without power for a day or two, you make certain assumptions and plans. You're going to be out of power for 6 or 7 days. That's a very different decision that needs to be made, particularly in cold weather and as it relates to food and your family and many people working from home, as was the case during Isaias and the impact of no power, no internet, and no phone. So we're working with UI now. They have invited us into the process. We've had 3 planning meetings so far. We pressed them on Tuesday when we met for a timeline. And we want to have a beta test of the system by June and an operational model by August 1st. And August 1st is the traditional beginning of hurricane season for New England. Nationally, it's August 1st for us. So they are 100% committed to develop a system-wide, company-wide, corporation-wide dashboard that will display the kind of information that we need to make better decisions and for residents to have better actionable advice from us on how to cope with the outage.
Chief, this is great, and I know you've been working on it hard. But the shift back to outage versus road clearance, in the language that's being used at least, road clearance was a major issue for us. Yep. So I just wanted you to comment on that, please.
So what happened previously, after the Superstorm Sandy, There was a two-storm commission at the legislature, and they came up with some protocols. And in order to provide the basic level of service for road clearings, they developed a clearance policy, make safe policy, and everybody got one tree crew or line crew and tree crew to clear all the roads. Didn't matter if you're a town like Fairfield that have 275 miles of road, or you're a town like Easton that has a far smaller number of road miles. Everybody got one crew. They improved that, and they gave us two, and there were very specific limits on what it could be used for. It would be only roads that were completely dead-ended. So a road like Burr Street, that you could have an road closure right in the middle, which means a very long detour to get around it, and response time implications and all that. It wouldn't qualify as a make-safe clearance road. During Isaias, they modified it. They gave us two crews, and they have said, do what you need to do. This is, you work on your priorities as you see them. This has nothing to do with restoration. It's 100% for road openings. So they have maintained that posture. So I feel we're in a better place than we were in previous storms. They recognize that each community is going to have to do that second crew that we're getting is one crew, and multiply by the 17 communities they have. That 17 crews, that an additional 17 crews that are not working on restoration. For a total of 34 crews, the initial Make Safe plus one is 34 crews in their 17 member town service area that are totally devoted to reopening roads. And at this point, I'm comfortable with that.
Okay. Have we yet developed a metric to monitor? Because what gets done in that culture?
I take to heart the recommendation that you made. If you don't measure it, it's not a priority.
That's their culture.
And we continue to push that concept, and until we get to an operating model that defines and displays where those outages are. We have asked for, a daily look ahead at the beginning of every day, what the priorities are and what the intended goal is at the end of the day. And at the end of the day, working with our liaison, because every community gets a liaison, is to review, did we meet the goal? And goal setting for the next day, particularly as it relates to that recommendation from you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and that's it. That's the focus on major projects, and there are 1,000 other initiatives, large and small, that we'll work on. But I thought that especially where we have some new commissioners and trying to focus on, for all of the commission, what our priorities are, give you a good overview, and I hope that it accomplishes.
Good. Commissioners, any other questions? Hearing none, the next up is vacancies, Chief.
I have nothing to report on that. On COVID update, we continue to work to project some easing of restrictions. Our planning team meets every 2 weeks or every 3 weeks, depending on need, and we are now anticipating requests for things like the parade, the Memorial Day parade, the Dogwood Festival, other activities that will come up and typically come up, carnivals that come up in the spring. And we have, as you may remember, we took a position in the spring, summer, and fall of last year to be more restrictive than Connecticut. And early on, we saw a very good result from that posture, that we had a lower infection rate than many of the communities surrounding us in the region. And then by September, everybody was experiencing the same kind of infection rate. Although we got the results today, so we were, at a high of 49 residents per 100,000 with COVID. And today we're down into the high 20s. So we finally broke that 30 per 1,000 threshold. Communities in the Hartford region are still in the 60s, 50s, and 60s, so we're doing better. But as we approach the spring, we are following the sector rules to the letter. We're not more stringent, and we can't be less stringent. So our approach is to advise groups and programs and departments based on that approach. And it makes it a lot easier because if you want an event on Sherman Green, then these are the sector rules covering that type of event.
Well, and now they're talking about vaccines being open to all by sometime in late April.
Yeah, that would be.
That was Fauci today, so.
That would be good.
I didn't see any donations in the packet. Did I miss anything? Okay.
Nope, there are none of it. But I just wanted to note that I did get the yearbook. So Chief Stopa's niece had contacted me, said that she had his badge and some photographs. So I said that we would be thrilled to have them. As a matter of fact, I told her that with their permission, I will wear Chief Stopa's badge on my uniform, and when I leave service, I will pass that on to the next chief. The family was very touched by that and has subsequently sent a scrapbook for the last few years of his service as chief. When we have the opportunity to share it, I'll share it with the commission. We're going to digitize some of those. It's every news clipping that appeared in the newspaper during his tenure, and I'm going to bring it over to the Historical Society and see if they'll digitize them and then make them available through the Fairfield Museum, Historical Museum.
That's excellent. Okay. Anything else, Commissioners?
Somebody have a question? I thought I saw a hand up, maybe.
Yeah. Madam Chairman, I have a question for the Chief regarding the COVID.
Okay, yep. Chief, do me a favor. Stop sharing your screen, and then everybody will be visible.
Got it. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, question.
Yes, I have a question. Chief, they're building out the commuter parking lot on Mill Plain Road for a testing station.
Yep.
Just trying to figure out timeline when that's going to be open. How long is it going to take to build that, and is there anything coming down the road? Because I see that being finished and hopefully not a need for it. Is there another reason why that's going forward?
So we put in a request, Sans Clary put in a request for additional testing. If you recall, Thanksgiving and Christmas in that time period, every walk-in medical facility had a line out the door from the beginning of the day to the end of the day. People standing in all kinds of weather waiting to get into testing. And none of the testing sites could keep up. There are some drive-through testing, I think Seaside Park in Bridgeport and at Betts Park in Norwalk and some other places, as well as the private providers. So Sans Clary put in a request for a testing facility for the entire month of December for them to say, yes, we will. And they look at two sites, the main parking lot for the railroad station and the Mill Plain Road commuter parking and railroad parking, maintained by the parking authority. Yale, who is running the testing site or will run the test site, chose for some logistical reasons, power being a main one, disruption of the parking lot, and the necessary repairs once they complete and close down the facility. It would have been too disruptive to dig up portions of the main railroad parking lot. So they chose Mill Plain Road. We will be open. So I have taken over responsibility in order to free up Sands Cleary to do the vaccination site clinic that he's running, as well as all of the ongoing responsibilities for COVID and contact tracing and others. So I have taken over responsibility for managing, or the point of contact for the town for that project. It will open on March 1st. We are seeing a reduction in demand for testing. There are no lines in front of any of the private providers, but the testing site is anticipated to be open until it's not needed anymore, sometime around September or August of this year. But I think that as the move goes, and you mentioned, somebody mentioned, it open to the general public for vaccinations come April, the demand for testing is going to go down dramatically, and we hope that it does. It does not have the capacity to be converted to a drive-through vaccination site because of the requirement to stay for observation for 15 minutes following the vaccination. Some of the drive-through sites do have that capacity, and you may have seen that on the news. Some of the big Superdome kind of raceway locations where they have a lot of ramp space. They can hold cars for that 15 minutes. This site does not have that, so it will not be that.
Can it be a non-drive-through site, though?
It is a drive-through testing site. It does not have the capacity to be a drive-through vaccination site.
Or to be converted to a non-drive-through vaccination site.
Yeah, so Yale at the same time has been inquiring about using some town facilities for a high-capacity, 7-day-a-week, 10-hour-a-day vaccination site. And we thought we were close to getting that. There were a couple higher priority, larger population density communities that they decided that they would work to get those open first. And hopefully we will get a high capacity vaccination site at some point. But right now I don't see it on the horizon.
Well, having experienced their process, I can say it's highly efficient.
Yeah.
Their registration through shot is incredibly efficient.
Yep.
Do we know anything about the different variants, like the South African variant, and how that's going to, could that drive the numbers back up again?
So one of the things that I've tried not to do, and we joke about it, is play junior epidemiologist. And beyond my scope of training and understanding, except that we have talked about it, and until it's the dominant strain, and it's not, although there are, I think I read recently, there's 16 cases in the state of Connecticut that have been identified. There is testing going on right now for the different variants that have been done in the state, and some samples are being sent to CDC so that they can identify what variants and to what degree they compose part of the total of the infections. The advice is, same for protection against COVID, is, avoid social contacts outside your household, and use proper hygiene and face covering. And the best choice. None of those change, but the pressure is on to get vaccinations as percentages up before some of these variants become dominant. And that is the goal in the state of Connecticut, and I think everywhere. With some additional vaccines becoming available, or when they become available, we can start to make better headway. But Fairfield, Sands Cleary has done an extraordinary job. His percentages and the efficiency of his operation is what has gotten us, interest from the state to open up a high-speed facility, and hopefully we'll get that.
Thanks.
Anything else before we move on to the deputy chiefs?
Move on to the deputy.
Okay. Commissioners, you're good? Okay. Deputy Chief, you're up.
Hi. So I spoke to Jen Carpenter about possibly, since we know when our meetings are, to try to reserve WebEx4 so that we won't have to worry about which numbers and which links we use for these meetings, because I know it gets a little difficult. We should be good with this one because it's WebEx4, so I think all the other bodies are using 1, 2, and 3. So let's hope. So I will let you know if that changes, but I will also send out the invite each, right before our meeting so that everybody has it. Some of the things, some of the more interesting calls, we had a fire in early February on Garden Street caused by a fire under the furnace. We had a small kitchen fire on Knapp's Highway on the 17th. And this morning we had a fire in a multiple dwelling, which had fire coming out the window, and our Engine 2 and the other crews made a quick stop, and we attribute the quick call from the homeowners to a smoke detector that went off. So that's always good hearing that they were installed and working. This week we completed our EMS agency license renewal. Sounds mundane, but it's one of these things that we have to do. We have to gather information for them. As the chief said, the AFG grant, we submitted it today. About $265,000 worth of equipment we're looking for in 2 different projects. So hopefully we'll see the benefit from that. As we said, the final preps for the promotional exams. I was going to mention in emergency management about the call center, but let's see. For the call center, but Cindy is on the phone also, so I think she'll tell us about all the great work that CERT is doing. So we're very, very grateful for their strong work, not just in the call center, but in the other projects they're doing, the food distribution for the senior center and the Operation Hope food distribution, which they did earlier in the pandemic. That's it. I think we covered everything else in the chief's slide.
Okay, good. Commissioners, any questions? Okay, I don't believe Southport is here.
I got a text from Frank Czaplinski.
Yep.
And the first line of his text was, can't dial into the system. So I don't know, Chief, if we can make sure that the 2 volunteer departments are on our list to get out, because he sent me a note saying he can't get in.
Okay. I do have somebody on one of the phones, and I don't recognize the number, and they haven't said anything, so I'm not really sure if that was him trying.
Okay, I don't know.
Yeah.
But it just said he can't dial in. So, but he did send me some information.
Go ahead.
The information that I got from him says that members are continuing with their vaccinations. He sent me another note after that one that says Chief Becker is wondering if there was a protocol change about notifications. I'm not sure what that means. I guess the chief and the Southport chief can get together on that. Like I said, I don't know.
No change that I know about in protocols. We haven't changed anything.
Okay. All right.
Will you check in with him, please, Deputy Chief, so that we're sure we understand what their issue is?
Yes.
Thank you.
And I do have a report from Strathfield.
Okay.
They recently did a CPR research class that was held at the fire school, keeping with social separation, and everything else is status quo with that, according to what they sent me.
Great. Local 1426. I don't think we have anybody here. Right, Chief?
No. Nope.
Okay. Cindy, CERT is up next. Would you introduce yourself and then go ahead and give your report, please?
Absolutely. Good evening, Commission. It's nice to be here. I am the president of the Fairfield CERT team, and I work very closely with Deputy Chief Dunn and Chief McCarthy. Each year, we're required by the state to turn in an annual report of our services and training throughout the year, and we just wrapped up that analysis, which we shared with Deputy Chief the other evening, and I thought it important to do a quick rundown. If you have any detailed questions, I can drill down into them for you. But we started with COVID activations on March 31st of last year when we started to deliver lunches and groceries to homebound seniors, working with the Bigelow Center for Senior Activities. That service has continued all year. In fact, we are still delivering lunches, coming up on almost a year of service with them. We moved quickly into the Operation Hope Outdoor Food Pantry, where our team managed and operated the outdoor delivery for those needing to pick up food from Operation Hope. We ended that service at the end of August, where they were able to, with social distancing guidelines, reopen their indoor pantry for their clients. We also worked with SWACA and managed a grocery bag pickup for seniors in town. That ran for a short time, but it was a valuable service. That was a grant through the Southwest Connecticut Agency for the Aging. We helped the town with the PPE pickup for local businesses. And we've also had members volunteer with the state of Connecticut for contact tracing. We have also started a very robust amateur ham radio club, which is our emergency communications group. And with the help of Deputy Chief, we've been able to plot our membership out on the VOCI map and triangulate all of our ham radio operators as we work towards emergency communications within our team. The FARA amateur radio group has been helpful in some of the training for that. What that really boils down to at the end of 2020, the Fairfield CERT team volunteered over 4,000 volunteer hours for activities that the town deemed necessary. And what that actually equates to is a value of $111,248. That's based on numbers that are brought together from the independent sector in the University of Maryland that annually put a value to volunteerism. So for the town of Fairfield, I think that's a fairly significant amount of money and volunteer hours. As we roll into 2021, the CERT team continues to deliver food to homebound seniors. We're currently staffing the vaccine call center with about 5 members every day of the week who are working 4 to 7 hours a day to return calls and answer questions. And we were fortunate enough to actually finally graduate a new CERT class that was scheduled to graduate in 2020, got put on hold due to COVID, and with state guidance, we were able to finish that class through online training, and Deputy Chief swore them in a couple weeks ago. So we are still at around 126 active members. That's been a number we've stayed at for about the last 3 years. With attrition, we lose people every year, and then we gain some people as well. Do you have any questions?
Commissioners, questions?
I'm good.
Outstanding work. What I would encourage you to work with the chiefs in terms of PR, and potentially also putting some sort of PowerPoint so it's available on our social media to support this, because this is a lot of great hard work that has helped the town in a period when we really needed it. So thank you, and thank all the CERT members.
Thank you.
And Commissioner, let me just add my appreciation to the CERT team. The deputy and I, when faced with a task that falls outside the norm of activities, which we have had quite a few over the past almost 1 year. Just a point of note, the first COVID mitigation work group meeting was February 28th of 2020, and so we're just coming up on the 1-year anniversary. But during this and during all of the other activities, when there is a need, we look to the CERT team more and more for helping us fill gaps and provide really life-saving and it's life-saving work, and they are part of the social fabric at the time of Fairfield. And I really don't know if we could do it without. I know we couldn't do it without. So thank you, Cindy, and the CERT team.
Outstanding. Thank you.
The Deputy Chief for his leadership.
Yes. Great.
Thank you.
New business. Did we do the budget already, Chief, in terms of what you wanted to cover, or do we?
The priority is the position. That is it. We have a very flat budget other than that.
Okay. Anything else to come up?
Not from me.
Any commissioners, anything you need to bring up? I would then entertain a motion to adjourn. Alex, second. John? We're good? All in favor? Aye. Great. Any opposed? Okay.
All right. Thank you all. It was good to see you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Nice to finally meet all of you. Thank you.
Yes.
You too.
And thanks
Chief.
for backing it up.
Thanks, Chief.
Good night.